Oh, Brody just called me and said Clementine is having her baby. Oh, please go well. Here we go. Where's she at? Let's see. I'm not even in boots and it's muddy. Okay. Hold on. Shh, what's that? Here it comes. Good job. She's doing really good. I don't know how nervous to be. Clementine, you got your baby. You worked so hard for her. So last I was on here, I was excited to come and deliver Clementine's baby, and I saw a hoof, and as we got closer, it was just one. She made no progress for several pushes. We realized it was just one. Her water broke, and so I decided to go in and feel, and the baby was breached and all kinds of tangled and caught on another one. So long story short is we had to extract that baby. It was so hard. It was really hard. Luckily my neighbor had come because she heard the baby and she helped me, and so we got that baby out. That baby was not breathing. We worked on it, and so Mama did really good. I was just trying to save Mama, and then the water bag started to bulge for another one, and so we kind of watched and waited for that one. And I was on the phone with other people who've done this a lot, and they suggested at that point, since no progress had been made, that I go in, and we were able to get that one out. It came out much easier. Oh good, this makes me so happy. Clementine's starting to take interest in her, which is really good. She wanted nothing to do with her at first, and so then I put her in front of her. Oh, she may be having a contraction. She makes that face with her mouth when she's having one, and her placentas are still inside. We're just gonna have to keep a close eye on them, I think, for a few days. That was rough. So an update is, after about 3 hours, the baby still was not standing. She seemed energetic. Didn't seem like she was like headed south. She seemed to be improving, but I could not get her to stand. So we actually ended up doing some selenium and vitamin E. The woman that we got Clementine from, I had asked her kind of originally, like, you know, what are you thinking in terms of the fact that the baby's not standing? And she said, you know, she should be standing within 15 minutes. And there wasn't really a lot to do. And then it kind of hit her, hey, maybe she's got floppy kid syndrome, which as soon as she said it, I was like, oh yes. You know, it's hard because you read all these things, but when you're new, it's hard to always like access them. And that made sense to me, because anytime I was giving her molasses or electrolytes, or we had been hand expressing milk and giving that to her in a syringe, and so anytime we did that, she perked up a little more and a little more. So that's just what I've been doing, and I was keeping her warm. But as soon as we did that, she perked right up, and she stood up for about 10 seconds, and now she seems to be doing pretty good. So I got them into a fresh stall because it was about to start raining. You can hear it had kind of started right now, sprinkling. We've got a storm moving in, of course, always what happens when we have a baby. But she nursed for a few minutes after she stood up for that 10 seconds, and she seems to be doing a lot better. But whoo, I will have some thoughts to process here in a moment. We are 6 hours in on this process today, and it was sad and thematic and, you know, scary. They're your animals, and you know, you want to save them. So this was a hard day. And here we go. It's now raining, but she is standing all by herself. This is just 20 minutes after the selenium and vitamin E gel. I think that's all we needed. Clementine, are you such a good mama? Are you so tired? I know, but the baby is doing so good. Hello, you two. Are you eating? Did she nurse for a minute?
Yes, she did.
And Clementine's very attentive to her. I was like picking her up, trying to make make her walk, like pumping her legs for hours. It's just...
Well, that voice memo you sent me, it was like all this medical terminology. I was like, there's no way. I would have had no idea what to do. Like, literally no idea. Looks like a mini cow.
I know.
So
does,
fuzzy.
doesn't it?
Good job, Clementine.
I know, Clementine. I'm so sorry.
Is that a yawn?
Yeah. I'm still worried about her, but because she wouldn't drink for hours, but this is the molasses water I gave her. Did you get enough to eat, Clementine? Or did you get worried?
I think she got worried because she walked over and she was letting her nurse. You sure you're not part cow?
All right. It's like actually pretty cold out here, which is so crazy. We are at the very end of April, and that's not normal for Texas. So anyways, hopefully I can stay warm with some coffee in this blanket. So luckily it's a Saturday and everybody is still asleep, which is probably good for me. I needed some time alone to kind of just process yesterday a little bit. I think it made it more complicated because, for those of you who don't know, I'm a midwife, and of course we're trained to handle complications, and this is the first time I've had to intervene. This is the first time I've been home for one of them to Cred, and Clementine was the one I was worried the most about. We had a barn fire in the winter, and when that happened, I mean, when we got home, no one was home. All the animals were everywhere. The fire department was so sweet. They were like trying to herd them all, and we were like, it's okay, we'll just keep them secure in a pasture. You know, but that lent itself to, I think, probably 2, maybe 3 days of where Clementine was with our little buck. They were pretty young. They were just, they were under a year old, and it wasn't the plan for us to breed her yet. We actually were going to breed her in May, so next month, so that she would then kid in the fall. That was the plan for us with her. So I was a little bit worried about her because she is small, you know, and I'm sure folks can leave comments on the irresponsibility of that, but like, things happen. And that's just the reality. I would say things happen because you're new sometimes. We're newer at this, but I think that was more of just kind of an emergency situation. That's not really something we could have foreseen or planned at the time. I mean, obviously we didn't plan a barn fire. So, you know, in the back of my head when that happened, I thought, oh, surely she won't be pregnant. It was such a short amount of time. But it became pretty apparent pretty quickly that she was pregnant, and we figured twins, which was crazy because it's her first time. So I was concerned about her, and so I'm very thankful that I was home. As a midwife, you know, we really try not to intervene. So for me, it was a little bit challenging because I thought, well, I don't want to interrupt the normal process of this. Luckily, the woman we got her from, I had been talking to yesterday, because we're kind of considering, you know, switching out some goats, and she wants to grow her Nubian herd. And anyway, so we have been messaging. And so when everything started unfolding, I messaged her, and she told me pretty quickly, like, you know, seeing one hoof and not making progress is not a good sign. You need to go in there. So as soon as I went in there, I felt a hoof and a face. So I thought, oh, we just need to pull the face forward, like the other hoof around the face forward, and kind of get that just kind of started. But the more that I got in there and started feeling to do that, it became apparent that I got the other hoof, but it became apparent that the hind leg was actually what was coming out. And so through that, I mean, the baby was kind of like in a C, but not in the right way. The other hoofs were stuck behind, kind of like up in a Superman, and it felt like it was hung up on the second baby, is what it felt like. And so at that point, my neighbor was going on a walk, and she heard Clementine yelling, and so she came over to check on us. And when she did, she asked me if I needed help. She used to be a nurse, so I was like, calculated, yes, okay, I think she can handle this. I mean, she can handle it. She has 7 boys, but so she hopped over and started helping me, and we started trying to bring the baby out. And I thought at that point, like, oh, I have help, like, I'll be able to get the baby out. I was trying to call my vet and get him on the line. I called the other woman. She was on the line with me, telling me things to do. and the baby was not coming. It didn't matter what position. I could not get the baby. And so it became a moment of like, I have to save Clementine. Like, we've got to get this baby out. There's another one in there. So I told my older son, anybody who was around, and my neighbor, like, I don't think this baby's going to be born living. Like, I need you guys to be prepared for that. And we got to work getting the baby out, and it felt like 10 minutes. I don't know how long it actually was. When we finally got that baby out, of course I worked on it a little bit, but it had been gone. And so, checked on Clementine, make sure she's stable. And then right about that point, her bag of waters for the second one is coming. So I'm like, dear God, please let this be just like a normal. So that one starts to come, and she's making progress. And for me, like midwife, first time mom, we let them take their time. So I message Heidi and I'm like, okay, this is normal, right? And she's like, no, you should be seeing more progress than you are in the time frame. And she said, especially with the difficulty of the other, she's like, I wouldn't wait too long to go in and check position. So I gave it more time, but ultimately decided to go in, check position. The water broke because the water was bulging. The water broke at that point. And when I went in, as soon as I went in, I felt a tail. And I was like, this one's breached too. And so luckily, I had more space, and I was able to get that one just kind of back. I tried to turn it forward, but I couldn't make it nosedive. And so we just came out breech, which was interesting, a little similar to, a human baby. And that one came out a little stunned. And so worked on it, had my son come grab some suction from my birth bag, which I'm so grateful, I had that stuff. Once we suctioned her, she started breathing and everything. But she wasn't wanting to do a lot. And 20 minutes goes by and she's not standing. Clementine's not interested in her. I'm trying to keep her warm. So I wrapped her up in a towel, tried to get her to stand, couldn't, brought her over to Mama, just laid her in front of Mama. Well, Mama started getting interested licking. About 45 minutes goes by and she hasn't stood. And Heidi's like, she has to stand, she's got to get blood flow going. And so I'm trying all kinds of things. And I said, what else do I do? And she's like, there's nothing else you can do. In the meantime, I was giving her, had hand express some colostrum from Clementine. She also suggested trying to get her to nurse. I tried. She wouldn't. But she would take the colostrum. She took some molasses. Clementine took some molasses. And every time I would give her nutrition, she seemed to perk up a little more and more. So I'm like, she's not going downhill, but that was my son. She's not going downhill, but, she's also not standing. So anyways, I think 3 hours went by, and I had some selenium and e-gel that I had purchased for this, and it didn't ring a bell until Heidi said, I wonder if the baby has floppy kid syndrome. And I was like, yes. So I went and got the selenium, also got some probiotics, and we went out, gave both of them a dose, and within 10 minutes she stood up on her own. Stood for about 10 seconds, fell, but then she nursed and went back out and checked on her 20 minutes later. She was full on standing. So that's what it was. This morning, obviously, she's doing great. I'm definitely going to be protective of her for a while. It's going to be hard to sell her. And I know, some folks might watch this and be like, oh, new homesteader. Yeah, okay, yep, new. In every regard, new to goats. Here are my thoughts, because last night I was trying not to correlate being a midwife with babies, human babies, and these goats. Babies can get stuck, and we know maneuvers to get them out, but there's always that fear in the back of your head, or just that awareness that can happen. I know of stories, in hospital of that happening, and so it's just a reality of some very real fear, and didn't really anticipate how that would affect me. Processed it with some midwives. Actually, a midwife has goats, which helped a lot. And what I realized is, we would have gone to the hospital. I would have seen the signs, because that's what I started processing through of the signs that you look for. Well, just like Heidi knew one hoof's not a good thing, that's a sign a baby's stuck. Well, we would have known that based on signs we know, and we would go in. So then I kind of started to find some comfort in that, but you're replaying through your head, Like, what have I done different? Could I have maneuvered that baby differently to get that baby out faster, safer, easier? And feeling like I'm new and that's my fault. You know, I'm not remembering the selenium for 3 hours. I'm new and that's my fault. And I'm sure there can be a lot of comments on here about potentially irresponsibility from start to finish of her getting pregnant to how it all went down. For that, it's fine, leave them. But for the rest of people who are afraid to get into something because they don't know everything, you don't know until you know. I mean, I think that is the case with a lot of things, and it's important to have somebody like a mentor or somebody you can ask questions of, just like in midwifery when I was learning, that can help you through it. And sometimes you just can't, and it's not your fault. But I would hate for that fear to be the thing that keeps people from doing this and learning, because we are at a place where it's really important that people begin to learn animal husbandry again, that we can provide food for our families, that we can be, I hate the term self-sufficient because I think we're a community-driven people, but you know, where you have things to trade, where it brings some sufficiency within a community. And we cannot do that if we're not willing to step out and learn within a community. Heidi and I met last year. It turned out she was a doula, which was cool. When we got Clementine, and she's in my area, and so she has joined our local homesteaders group that I created a couple months ago, you know, and that's really even where the conversation of my Nubian goats came up, because we're in community together. And I just had to process through all of those feelings, process it through with my kids, you know, because they were here for it. They handled it very well, you know, but I wanted to allow them time to grieve. I know it's an animal, but there's still a real grieving process. It's the first, you know, traumatic loss on our property. We've lost some animals, but, you know, only one to a predator, and that was her partner, actually. We found him. So it's just a little less traumatizing than to experience it. I mean, even for me, I mean, I was the one that knew as I'm pulling this baby out, like, this baby's not going to be okay. It's too long. It's been too long that the feet are out, you know. So those are my thoughts. This life is beautiful and it's hard. I don't know how appropriate it is to say this in this moment, but just hearing this quote from different people of where there's livestock, there's dead stock. I know that's a reality, but I think I tend to think like sickness or predator. Birth has not been something we've experienced yet, and it was certainly hard. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, listening to me, if you've made it this far. And I hope it doesn't discourage you. I hope it just allows you to see that it's real and it can happen, and you can handle it, and you can be okay the next day. And you know, we are gonna have a lot of fun with the baby that made it the next few days, and that's gonna bring us joy, but there will be sadness still of everything, and just even what poor Clementine had to go through to get those babies here. So thanks for hanging out with me. Until next time. It's stuck. Oh, Clementine. Clementine, how pregnant are you? Girl, you got some girth. How pregnant are you?